things are only going to get worse for Blake Lively from here.
I think there was a willingness on her part to consider settlement and resolving it.
There's no audience for Blake Lively. She tried to blame that all on Justin, but it was really her own doing.
Okay, so listen. Megyn Kelly and Bryan Freedman are finally teaming up to expose exactly how Blake Lively used her recent appearance at the Met Gala to try and pull off the ultimate cover-up. And let me tell you something from my personal experience. You can buy a spot at Gala through your connections, but you can't buy back your credibility.
Rarely do you see satisfaction at the end of a lawsuit. Rarely do you see, okay, gee, I got back everything I put out. Everything is now clarified. Everything is now cleaned up. You don't get that at the end of a lawsuit.
Now, if you don't know Bryan Freedman, he's one of those attorneys who says what he sees, and he sees through the lies that most of us would never even notice. He's been following this case from the beginning, and he was there in the room when the settlement dropped. And Megyn Kelly? She's the real one here because while the fashion magazines were writing love letters to Blake Lively's comeback, Megyn was doing what she does best, cutting through the fluff and asking the questions that actually matter.
Who let it dictate her life? She filed. She's the one who started this whole thing. She makes it sound like she was victimized.
First things first, I think it's important to understand why Met Gala was chosen by Blake Lively to hide her recent loss, which came in the form of her no-money settlement with Justin. Now, Met Gala is basically a global circus for me, where the richest folks from the world get together to wear outfits that normal people can't afford and can't even understand. Also, what I believe is that it's not really about fashion, even though that's what they tell us. It's about showing everyone else that these celebs exist on a completely different level. Rules don't apply to them. They can do whatever they want and still end up on magazine covers the next morning. If you're going to try to pull off a cover-up for a legal loss, that's exactly the kind of stage you need. It is the most out-of-touch thing you could imagine, and Megyn Kelly does not hold back when she talks about it.
Last night was the 2026 Met Gala, where out-of-touch elites get to show off their bizarre fashion choices.
So when Blake Lively showed up that night in her pastel Versace gown, the pictures that came out were quite beautiful. I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise. But the thing is, we can't hide the fact that she was standing on those museum steps to tell everyone that her recent settlement doesn't affect her. Look at me, look at my dress, see how perfect everything is. Don't look at the court documents. Don't look at what the judge said. And honestly, that's exactly what happened. The next day, every magazine was talking about how this was her big comeback moment. But thanks to people like Kelly and Justin's lawyer, Bryan Freedman, the trick doesn't work as well as it used to.
She could not let this case go to trial. She could not let him cross-examine her. She could not take the stand. She was about to actually become Amber Heard.
Now, imagine you're on Blake Lively's team. You've spent years building this belief that you're this brave survivor fighting against a powerful director. But then your case has just gotten out of your hand because there is not enough evidence to support your claims. What do? Well, you need some cover-up that makes everyone forget what they read in the court documents, and that's exactly when the settlement announcement came up. The joint statement between Blake and Justin was released to the media on Monday, May 4th. This was the exact same day as the Met Gala, and while that news was breaking across television screens all over the world, Blake Lively was enjoying with her team while getting her hair and makeup done. Now, I'm a person who believes in coincidences. Bad things happen at bad times. Sometimes the universe just doesn't cooperate, but this isn't a coincidence. This is a masterclass in how to save your image directed by Blake herself. Justin's lawyer saw this moment, and when he was asked about her showing up at the Met Gala, he didn't play nice and mocked her decision.
I have no idea, whether the Met Gala had a sponsorship deal going on.
Well, Blake needed a massive platform to change the subject, and the Met Gala was right there at exactly the right moment. And here's the interesting part. The deal itself? It offered her absolutely nothing in terms of money. No admission of wrongdoing from Justin. It was purely an exit strategy. She took whatever was on the table just so she could walk that red carpet without having to answer questions about an active, failing lawsuit. But here's the thing. The timing of her settlement and Met Gala appearance, as damaging as they are, only tell a small part of the story.
But the genuine A-list Hollywood talent wasn't there and hasn't been there in years.
Megyn Kelly does not see a brave woman fighting for justice. She sees something completely different. She sees a person who has figured out how to use the most powerful shield you can possibly have to protect your image. And you and I both know who has been using that thing to avoid any accountability for her own behavior. Now, there's a term Megyn Kelly throws out here which suggests how people like Blake create certain situations around themselves because they need to be seen as someone who needs help and care.
She tries to make something bad happen to her. She insists that she has to be a victim because something terrible's happened to her.
Think about how this thing works in real life. If someone stands up and says, "I was mistreated," what happens? People rally around them. The media covers their story with sympathy. Anyone who questions them or pushes back gets backlash. And that's what Blake Lively did here. She tried to portray herself as innocent, and the moment she did that, she made it impossible for anyone to challenge her claims. That's an extremely powerful position to be in. And once you have that position, you can basically do whatever you want because nobody is allowed to hold you accountable for your own actions.
She wrested his movie away from him and decided to try to hurt him with petty, made-up, out-of-context complaints.
From what you have heard, Megyn Kelly is completely flipping the narrative on its head. For months, the story we were told was that Blake was someone who had to fight back against powerful forces trying to silence her. Kelly is saying no because in reality, the evidence shows Blake was the one creating the environment through behind-the-scenes tactics. And this analysis fits perfectly with everything that came out in those text messages. The 17-point demands. The threats to walk away from the movie project. Calling herself a dragon with famous friends who could attack anyone who crossed her. Ryan Reynolds reportedly sent texts calling Justin something that I don't even wish to mention here. Megyn Kelly even mocked the fake public image that Blake Lively works so hard to maintain.
She's just trying to give you the adjectives she wants you to repeat about her because she has not those things.
That's such a perfect observation from Kelly. The girl desperately wants everyone to call her brave, strong, and a creative genius. But here's the thing. If you have to dictate your own praise through PR teams just to get people to say nice things about you, that is not strength. That is the opposite of strength. That is deep, deep insecurity, wearing a designer dress.
Blake Lively has just proven she does not give a damn about women. She's at the Met Gala. Full gown, looking all fresh, showing off for the cameras after she abandoned her lawsuit that was to protect and fight for women.
When the lawsuit finally settled, both sides released a joint statement which said, raising awareness and making a meaningful impact in the lives of all survivors is a goal that we stand behind. Now, if you just look at that, it sounds like a nice message. Everyone's supportive, everything's positive. But I really want to dig deeper into that settlement statement because I think a lot of people missed what was actually happening there. Most folks probably read it once, thought it sounded nice, and moved on. But when you really break down the language choices, there's some seriously calculated tricks going on. The tiny phrase mentioning survivors wasn't in the original statement. That was added specifically at Blake Lively's request. She and her team asked those exact words to be included in this joint communication. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so what? What's the big deal about adding those words? But let me explain. By forcing all survivors into that statement, Blake pushed her own dismissed claims into the exact same category. She took her weak, thrown-out lawsuit allegations about hurt feelings and creative disagreements and said, yeah, I'm in that group too. I'm a survivor, just like the women this movie was actually supposed to help. Think about what that does. It puts Blake in the same category as people who have experienced real-life problems. Meanwhile, the judge had already thrown out her core allegations. However, in this statement, she's still managing to position herself as someone who belongs with the real survivors. Well, that to me is a deliberate move to make sure that even when she's agreeing to move on and let everything go, she's still included in every category of suffering even when a judge said her suffering claims were legally insufficient. Bryan Freedman pointed out the irony of the whole situation.
It's taken a toll on domestic violence survivors.
That's such a sharp observation. The whole point of that movie was to support those survivors. The whole point of this lawsuit was about protecting women and standing up for what's right. And at the end of the day, the actual cause got absolutely nothing.
No spotlight.
No real benefit. No genuine support. The attention just went to the Versace dress and the red carpet photos. The charities that were supposed to be helped by this entire mess got pushed completely aside while a Hollywood star fought for creative control and vanity. The cause was a stepping stone. It was useful when it helped build the narrative, and the moment it wasn't useful anymore, it was abandoned completely.
This is PR. She's trying to get back with the public, and she does look like a princess. She looks beautiful. It is stunning. She looks like a starburst. But it is very strategic that case was settled today, and now she's at the Met Gala.
The settlement was rushed to hide a legal defeat. Met Gala was used as a PR stage. The official statement was hijacked to strengthen a lawsuit that had nothing to do with actual stuff, and now even the joint statement is being made to make sure Blake stays in the victim category no matter what. But here's the thing, the cover-up can't work on everyone. There's a massive disconnect happening right now between what the glossy magazines are printing and what real people are actually saying, and that's where things get really interesting.
Justin Baldoni's lawyer, Bryan Freedman, had spoken with TMZ yesterday. While terms of the settlement were not disclosed, when they asked Bryan if this was a win for Justin, he did tell them he felt it was a huge victory for him.
After the Met Gala and the settlement announcement, the friendly publications did exactly what Blake Lively's expensive PR team printed the glossy photos and wrote the glowing articles about her vintage fashion choice. They framed the settlement as a smart, mature decision that allowed everyone to move forward and put the past behind them. That was the story they wanted everyone to believe. And for about maybe 48 hours, it kind of worked. But here's what they didn't know. The world has changed. They can pay for positive coverage. They can make sure certain outlets run exactly the stories they want to run, but they cannot control the response anymore.
After all this, she basically dropped the case, settled, no apology, nothing, and she goes to the Met. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, she's brash.
These aren't just random angry comments. These are people who read everything, who paid attention, who connected the dots. They saw through the PR spin. They saw that a magazine cover cannot erase a massive digital footprint. The facts are out there. The court records are public. The text messages are documented, and no amount of Versace chiffon can make those things disappear. The cover-up only works if people actually believe it. That's the whole game. If the fans accept the fake narrative becomes the truth in the public mind. But if the fans refuse to buy what they're selling, the whole thing collapses. And that's exactly what happened here. Thanks to people like Megyn Kelly and Bryan Freedman for asking hard questions and presenting the actual evidence.
It hasn't been about the show, and it hasn't been about the misrepresentations. It's been about the facts.
A magazine cover is temporary. It lasts a week, maybe two if someone keeps it on their coffee table. But a document filed in a Manhattan courthouse? That stays forever. Anyone can read exactly what a federal judge ruled and why, and that's the thing about truth. It doesn't go away just because someone shows up to a party wearing an expensive dress. While Blake Lively was out there buying magazine space, Justin Baldoni was quietly going about his business with evidence and actual legal victories on his side.
What did it feel like to have, really powerful people in the entertainment community plotting against you through emails?
Justin Baldoni didn't win this thing through a PR campaign. He didn't pay or buy magazine space or coordinate a timed appearance. He won because a federal judge looked at the actual evidence and ruled that the major claims against him had zero merit under the law. His lawyer has been very clear. He says Justin and his team are ecstatic and very happy with the outcome. Multiple reports have confirmed that $0 were paid to Blake Lively. She got nothing financially from this settlement.
Surprisingly,
reports suggest she literally paid for that Met Gala appearance with whatever leverage she had left. She bought that moment with the last scraps of a case that had already been gutted by a judge, and now that those heavy chains are finally off, the biggest revelation of this entire story is still yet to come.
The fortunate part of it is this case was pretty much gutted almost completely after the summary judgment motion.
Bryan Freedman has already suggested Justin Baldoni is planning to speak out. He plans to tell his side of the story. He wants to share his perspective on the massive impact this whole process has had on his family, who are caught in the crossfire of this celebrity feud.
I think he'll be able to talk about what this does to a family, what this does to feel like you're wrongfully accused of something.
Now, there's intense speculation about what that might actually look like. Justin is known as a documentary filmmaker. He's done films on social issues. He's built a career around telling stories that matter, and there's a very real possibility that he's been documenting this entire thing from the very beginning.
I think that he is trying to gather with his family and get some semblance of peace.
If he has been quietly collecting evidence and building a documentary or some kind of information of what actually happened here, he has the ability to show the world exactly what goes on when an out-of-touch celebrity decides to use their massive platform and their famous friends to crush a director. He can show the text messages. He can show the timeline. He can show how the false narrative was created and how the real evidence told a completely different story. His future statements and whatever documentary or project he eventually releases will possibly be the final nail in the coffin of this whole Met Gala cover-up. And the foundation for that future reckoning has already been laid by these two boss people.
This is not his settlement. He's already out of the case.
Bryan Freedman and Megyn Kelly have made sure the fans got to see the massive disconnect between the magazine covers and the ugly truth sitting in court transcripts. They have made sure people understood that you can buy a headline, but you can't buy back your credibility once it's gone. And they made sure that while Blake Lively was taking her one-night victory lap, the real story was waiting, ready to be uncovered.
The devil is in the details, and we'll see what the agreement looks like and work on that agreement.
You know, I've been sitting here thinking about everything we've covered so far, and there's one piece of this puzzle I haven't really got into yet. And honestly, it's this thing that makes this whole thing even messier than it already was. I'm talking about the other people in Blake Lively's corner. Famous friends, the power network, the people who basically became her personal squad whenever anyone dared to cross her. Now, this wasn't just a lawsuit between two people in the industry. This was a whole operation, and when you've got someone like Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds in your corner, you're not exactly playing by the same rules as everyone else. Think about that for a second. Taylor is arguably the most influential celebrity on the planet. Her fan base is massive, her reach is global, and the moment she sides with someone, that person's enemies become targets for millions of people who will flood comment sections and basically wage digital warfare on anyone who challenges their favored celebrity. That's a lot of power to have in your back pocket. And then you've got Ryan Reynolds, who's got connections everywhere, and from everything that came out in those text messages, he was more than willing to use all of that to defend his wife. I mean, we saw the texts where he allegedly called Justin Baldoni a lot of things. I'm not going to repeat them here because honestly, they're not worth as our boy Justin has already won the whole thing. But the point is Ryan was involved in trying to create trouble for this man's reputation. He was participating in what Kelly called a classic takeover tactic, and that's what really bothers me about this whole thing.
So you can have all the money and all the fame and all the trappings of a Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively and still feel so small that you've got to rally your celeb network to try to ruin this director, Justin Baldoni, who really wasn't planning on doing anything to Blake Lively.
Normal people don't have this option. If you and I get into a dispute with someone, we don't have millions of fans to support us. We don't have celebrity friends who will send hostile texts on our behalf. We don't have the ability to basically weaponize an entire fan base against whoever crossed us. But Blake Lively does, and she basically used it just to get exposed by Kelly and Justin's lawyers. Honestly, it's not just Blake Lively and her cover-up attempt. It's about what this reveals regarding how power works in Hollywood, how celebrity culture creates two different sets of rules, how people with enough fame and enough famous friends can basically operate without consequences for way too long, until eventually someone with the resources and the patience decides to fight back through proper channels.
Your box office poison. You did the same thing to yourself that Meghan Markle did to herself. Justin Baldoni will emerge from this.
Blake Lively may have secured her spot on those museum steps for a few hours. She may have gotten her photo taken 1 million times and her dress talked about for a full news cycle. But the cover-up failed. The dismissed claims are public record. The text messages exist. The deposition lie is documented, and none of that goes away just because you show up somewhere expensive and sparkly. The true cost of all this will follow her long after the Met Gala lights have dimmed. Because truth has a way of sticking around. It outlasts the fashion. It outlasts the PR campaigns. It outlasts the magazines and the comment sections, and even the next big scandal that distracts everyone for a few weeks. Now, I genuinely want to hear what you guys think. Did you see through the cover-up from the beginning, or did some of this stuff surprise you when you actually looked into it? And where do you think this goes from here? Is there any way Blake Lively comes back from something like this? Or is this the kind of thing that just defines your public image from now on? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this video interesting, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.